Hello, I'm JW, and this is part of a series on the wiring regulations, and more specifically the changes between the existing ones, which is BS7671, the 17th edition, Amendment 3, and the new one, the 18th edition, which is applicable from January 2019. And today we're going to have a look at the changes in Part 7, which is the one that covers the various special locations. So here's Part 7, and it says here it's the special installations or locations, and there's a whole list of these, including things like bathrooms, swimming pools, and so on. Now, not all of these have changes within them, so where there's no changes, we're not actually going to look at those. So although we've got a whole list here, some of these we're not going to look at at all, they'll be missed out. So in those cases, it's either the case there's no change at all, or the changes are so minor and irrelevant that not worth actually looking at. And the first one we're going to look at, in fact, is 704, construction and demolition site installations, and then we'll carry on down the list to any of which have actual changes within them. And as with the other videos, all of this in a text form for the updates is available on the website, and that's at flameport.com. So have a look there if you want to actually get a sort of printed out listing of the various changes. So 704, which is construction and demolition site installations. And just a few changes in this one. We have the first addition here, which is in 704.410.3.6. So protective measures of these items here. And the one that's been added is electrical separation for the supply of more than one current using equipment as specified in Regulation 4183. And essentially these are things which you will not use, so cases shall not be used. So as well as the other two, now we've got this electrical separation, which can't be used either. The next item, which is actually new and it's been added in, is 704.5122, and that's external influences. And we've got here, consideration should be given to the risk of damage to electrical equipment by corrosive substances, movement of structures and vehicles, wear and tear, tension, flexing, impact, abrasion, severing, and ingress of liquids or solids. So this has been added in. Again, this is not something which is particularly new or surprising. Bearing in mind, this is based on construction and demolition sites, where all of these things are pretty much going to be inevitable in any case. So obviously just considering those items. And in a similar sort of theme here, we've got this new one here, 704.522.8.101, which is surface run and overhead cables shall be protected against mechanical damage, taking into account the environment and activities of a construction site. So certainly with anything on the surface, obviously it's going to be vehicles and things moving around and equipment and machinery and all kinds of other stuff, so protection against mechanical damage is required. So moving on then to section 705. For some reason this starts halfway down a page, so should have been a page break inserted there, but obviously it was not for whatever reason. And the particular one in this, say agricultural and horticultural premises, there's only one real item here, which is 705.422. So that's one over the page here, so 705.422.7. And as we've got here, it's got for additional fire protection purposes in some circumstances, RCDs shall be installed with a rated operating current not exceeding 300 milliamps. And the additional part here is the wording in some circumstances, whereas previously it was just that they would be installed, but now it is in some circumstances only, so not necessarily required in all situations. Now the next one with changes is 708, electrical installations in caravan or camping parks and similar locations. So this refers to the actual place where caravans things would be used, not the actual stuff within a caravan or motorhome or whatever. That's a separate section. Now the first item that's been added here is note 3, and this one is the electrical installations of residential park homes are covered by the general requirements of BS7671, which is this document, together with the relevant particular requirements of Part 7. That's just been added in there. As you see in the margin here, there's a whole load of marks here because some of these have been sort of revised, tampered around with and whatever, but again we're only looking at the changes of actual relevance here. So that note has been added. 708.313 supplies. This is about the natural voltages used to supply leisure accommodation vehicles. And we've got an additional part here, which is the bit right on the end, which is 48 volts DC. So we already had the 230 and the 400, so 48 volts DC added on. Again, although it's been added in here, it's not a particularly new idea that leisure vehicles could have voltages of these things. So again, it's not necessarily a brand new item, it's just something that's been added in here. Now over the page here we've got 708.512, operational conditions and external influences. This particular part here has been expanded quite considerably. A lot of the content was here before, but there's a lot more detail now, and a couple of changes as well. So have a look at this one. got 708.512.1.2, which is presence of solid foreign bodies, and that's now AE. And the change here is that it's now a degree of protection of at least IP4X and protecting against the ingress of very small objects, as in AE3. Previously this was IP3X and it was AE2, which is small objects, so essentially it's moving up in the protection there to basically the next level. So IPX4 and AE3. And then here in 708.5.1.2.2 we've got a note here which is entirely new. In a caravan or camping park, special consideration is given to the protection of people due to the fact that the human body may be in contact with earth potential, to the protection of wiring due to tent pegs or ground anchors, and to the movement of heavy or high vehicles. So again, it's all pretty much common sense stuff, most of which should have been taken into account before, but now it's got a specific note for that. And an amendment here which is 708.5.21.7.1. And we've now got the preferred method of supply for feeding the caravan pitch or tent pitch electrical supply equipment is by means of underground distribution circuits. Now previously the thing actually stated that underground or overhead was suitable, and then there was a note which said that underground was preferred. So pretty much the same thing, except now I've got an actual numbered regulation which states that underground is preferred. And again, that's pretty much common sense, because overhead obviously is a certain height, and there's likely to be large vehicles moving around there fairly often. Now this whole page here, which starts with 708.5.3 and basically continues down there, and then there's also a 708.5.5 which starts here. There is no 5.4 for whatever reason. These have been quite a lot of rearrangement here and a bit of renumbering going on, hence you've got the basic solid line all the way down the edge here. Most of the content here is actually the same, but again it's one of these where it's just been sort of rearranged and various sort of notes have been taken out or put in and various other things. One particular item here of note which is different to previously is 708.5.5.1.1, and we've now got that every socket outlet or connector shall either comply with the standard here and shall be interlocked and classified to this standard, or be part of an interlocked self-contained product, again complying with the standards here and there, to prevent the socket contacts being live when accessible. Now these types of things are normally the round blue variety with the 3 pins. 16 amps is the most common type here, and the deal with them now requiring it to be an interlock variety is the type that when you actually insert the plug there, you can only do so when the thing is in the turn off position, and then when you turn it on you can't actually take the plug out of the socket until you turn the switch to the off position. And as it says here, the point of that is to prevent that the socket contacts being live when accessible, because that type of socket does not have shutters on the actual socket tubes. So of course it was turned on and there was no plug installed, it would be possible to poke objects in there and obviously receive an electric shock from that. So interlock sockets are now required on all caravan pitch supplies, and it says here can either be a single product or one that's part of a self-contained system, as is more usually supplied there. Now next one is 709, marinas and similar locations. There's a very minor change in this one, and that's to these diagrams over here. We've got a couple of figures here, 709.1 and of course 709.2 as well. The only change here, despite the entire thing being marked as altered, is that these letters here for PE or Protective Earth have been added. They did not exist in the previous one, and of course below here exactly the same. However, what hasn't changed is that this top diagram has these rather strange wavy edge drawings of these connectors, and also the pins in that one are sort of off-centered and in the wrong place. These ones down here are somewhat better effort. So a couple of letters put there, but that's pretty much it, and the horrible drawing was not actually improved or replaced. Now section 710, medical locations. This has quite a lot of changes within it, and again there's a lot of in this whole section here, various things that have been sort of rearranged, rewritten, and sort of combined into other things and separated out, and notes moved and whatever else. So quite a lot of adjustments there. Now the first change is in 710.1. Note 1 has been added, so the requirements of other sections of Part 7 may also apply. And also that's basically the rest of this entire chapter. The other notes have been renumbered. Of course, obviously 1 was inserted there. And Note 2, although this did exist before, we've actually got an extra piece here. We've got life supporting procedures has been added at the end there. So it's previously just the sentence without that, and now that has been added in. Now change here, 710.411.325. Now this did exist before, but it's basically been considerably shortened, and there was actually a table 710 which used to fit in here, which concerned maximum disconnection times. That has been deleted, and then a big chunk of this, which obviously referred to the table, has been deleted as well. What's left was basically already in there, so basically the thing with disconnection times in various types of system has been removed. And another one that's been deleted immediately after this is 710.411.33, and that was about additional protection with an RCD. However, though that's been deleted, the basic text has been incorporated into the following parts here, so it does actually still exist in there, as it says here, the additional protection by RCD, so it's been slightly expanded and basically renumbered and moved down. Now 710.414 has been changed as we've got the additional protection thing being added in here, and that's how it was in the previous part. And the main change here is that we've got in final circuit of group 1, with rated current not exceeding 32 amps and below. Previously this was 63 amps, so that has basically been cut in half there. And there's also a new note which says it's also permissible to use RCDs above 32 amps in group 1 locations. So rather than being required up to 63 now, it's basically up to 32, and you can still use them above that if desired. 710.411.6, the IT system. And what's happened here is, again, it's basically the same content, but we've actually got a list of various types of equipment here. So rather than just having a sort of general list there, it's best put it into these 3 called out points. So equipment with the rated power greater than 5 kVA, X-ray equipment, and the supply movements of fixed operating tables. Some of that was actually previously in the 710.414 that we saw up there, so it gets a bit of a sort of rearrangement and alteration there. Now 710.415.1 is a new one, and it's where a medical IT system is used. Additional protection by means of an RCD is not required. 710.415.21, substantially similar, though some rearrangement. The new part here is that supplementary equipotential bonding connection points for the connection of ME equipment shall be available in Group 2 and should also be considered in Group 1 medical locations. Previously this actually stated you should have a certain number of the connection points in each group location, so now it's just a question of having a certain number available. And then down here we've got notes 1 and 2, which again are sort of taken out of the original text, and this just gives you a suggestion, so a minimum of 1 per point per patient location is recommended, and again for the group 2, a minimum of 4. So substantially quite similar, but it's just a question of rearranging and putting things into notes, which were obviously not in that arrangement before. 710.415.22, this refers to the maximum resistance there, and the difference here now is that the measure resistance between the earth terminal of any socket outlet or fixed equipment and any extraneous constructive part shall not exceed 0.2 ohms, and this is for the locations Group 1 and Group 2. The previous one actually was 0.7 ohms for Group 1 and 0.2 for Group 2, so basically they're all now 0.2 ohms. Another new one on the page here, we've got 710.41.1.201. In medical locations of Group 1 and 2, arc fault detection devices, AFDDs, are not required to be installed. In medical locations of Group 0, arc fault detection devices shall be used subject to a risk assessment. So they're not required, and you can use them in the Group O if desired, and obviously based on the individual circumstances. 710.512.1.2. This existed before, but it's been changed. It now says, in case of a fault or failure of supply, previously it actually stated first fault to earth. So a slight rewording of that, as in fault or failure of supply, not necessarily first fault to earth. And continues as before, a total loss of power in a Group 2 medical location shall be prevented. At the end of this particular piece here, we've got these diagrams. This is 710.2, a typical theatre layout. There's been a number of revisions to this, one of which is printing it in ridiculously small text, which you need a microscope to actually see. One of the more useful changes is that we've actually got the addition of having some TN socket outlets here from a separate distribution system, and how those could be incorporated into the whole. And there's also quite a lot of extra equipment being added in here as examples of what could or may well be found in these types of installation. And so you need to get the old microscope out to actually read some of this text. 710.3, which is another diagram in this section. Again, there's some minor changes on this one. The main change here, we've got the supplementary equipotential bonding connection points has been added in as a label, although the actual things existed in the previous one. So just a minor change to that. And then the final change here is the annex A710. and this has added a piece in here that the requirements of Regulation 710.3 cannot be satisfied by using this table alone. And at the bottom here we've got footnote A, which is specific luminaires, and previously it was just luminaires, so it's just put their word specific in front of that sentence. So next section is 711, exhibitions, shows and stands, and a couple of changes here, nothing particularly major. The first change here is in 711.42242 on the heat generation, and we've got now, in all cases, the manufacturer's instructions shall be taken into account. Previously, that actually stated that manufacturer's instructions shall be followed, so a minor change to wording, followed or now taken into account. And in 71155, there's a piece here that's been deleted, which was previously 7115515, and that was essentially where equipment was to be fixed to prevent ignition of material. That has been completely removed. Now, section 714, outdoor lighting installations. There's only one item that's truly changed here, and it was 7145123 about ground recess luminaires. That's been removed from this, but it's of course been relocated to 55910, which we've seen in the previous episode. So it still exists, but it's no longer in this part here, it's just gone back to somewhere else. Section 715, extra low voltage lighting installations. There's just one change here, and it's this one, 715524201. What we've now got is that the minimum cross-section area of the conductors shall be chosen according to the load current. So pretty obvious stuff there. And then the bottom part here is the minimum size of 4 square millimetres for mechanical reasons. Previously there was actually a list of various things, including the length of the conductors and other things, but now it's just a question of minimum size, of course based on the load current. So moving on to the next one, which is section 721, electrical installations in caravans and motor caravans. So this is in the actual things themselves. Obviously we saw the actual sites for these things previously. Now there's been a couple of deletions here, which are 721, 410, 331 and also 332. Those have actually been removed. However, the majority of the content has actually been added in 2 additional items here, which is essentially what here, 721413 and also 721414. So a bit of rewriting, essentially the same kind of content. Let's say things have been removed and of course added in under something else. Now here we have a new one, so 721-54411, and the protective bonding conductors. The terminations of protective bonding conductors connecting to the conductive structure of the unit shall be accessible and protected against corrosion. So that's a new one. Another one which was around this area here, which has been deleted, is 721-5521, and so that's been deleted. It previously required that all low voltage socket outlets to have an earth contact, and that's no longer the case. So you can have those sort of 2-pin Euro type things and other similar items. And then the final one for this section is in the annex, in fact, to A7152825, cable runs and LPG installations. What's basically happened here, this is essentially new text as marked here, so quite a lot of extra stuff there. However, the previous one actually just referred to this particular thing to say, see another regulation in the earlier pages, which essentially contained the same text as we've got here. So all that's really happened is that some text elsewhere has been copied over here, rewritten slightly, obviously included in the annex. In terms of the content about running cables where gas cylinders and the like are included, doesn't actually change anything. It's really pretty much the same as before. Now, section 722, electric vehicle charging installations. There's a number of changes here, and electric vehicle charging, of course, something which is becoming more popular and likely to become even more so in the fairly near future. Now, the first change we've got here, there's a new note here which is at the top. So definitions relating to 722 can be found in part 2 under electric vehicle. So some of the definitions have changed, and we've already seen those in the previous episode where we looked at the part 2. 7221 itself, the scope, a minor change here in that we've now got the requirements of this section do not apply to electric vehicle charging points that employ inductive charging. So that has now been added in there, and that's essentially where it's not a direct electrical connection, it's just going to be, as it says, an inductive or a magnetic connection between the actual vehicle and the charging equipment. So this only applies where we've got a direct plug-in or electrical connection to that. Now 722.41141 has been changed somewhat. and it's another one of these where a lot of the text is the same, although the actual arrangement of it has been revised. So what we've now got is a PME earthing facility shall not be used as the means of earthing for the protected conductor contact of a charging point located outdoors, or that might be reasonably expected to use to charge a vehicle located outdoors, unless one of the following methods is used. And we've got the three methods 1, 2 and 3. Now this is what it said previously, and it was a similar thing except where 1, 2 and 3 applies, a PME facility shall not be used, and so on. So it's the similar thing, but it's been rearranged. What's been deleted is this bit here, which used to say the requirements of this regulation need not be applied for the charging point at a dwelling if none of 1, 2 and 3 or those is reasonably practicable. So previously they could be installed in a dwelling if none of those things were reasonably practicable. That's now been deleted, meaning that if you have a PME facility, which is very common in a domestic installation, then you do need to apply either 1, 2 or 3 to that. This exception has basically been removed. And there was a definition of dwelling, of course that doesn't apply anymore because the exception has gone as well. So if you're going to be installing a charging facility at a dwelling, which is, let's face it, where most of them are going to be, then if you've got a PME thing, you need to have one of the 3 items here. Now these are basically the same as before with a minor change on number 3, so just have a look at those. So first of all, the charging point forms part of a 3-phase installation that also supplies loads other than for electric vehicle charging, and because of the characteristics of the load installation, the maximum voltage between the main earthing terminal installation and earth in the event of an open circuit fault in the PEN conductor doesn't exceed 70 volts. That's desperately unlikely in a domestic installation, because first of all, most domestics don't have 3-phase, and even if they did, they're not going to have the other loads, which obviously would make that criteria a possibility. The type of loads it's referring to are where it's a 3-phase load and it's a balance load, which means that the current in the neutral essentially would be 0 or close to 0, and of course that would then result in a pretty much no voltage showing on that if the PEN conductor, of course the neutral and earth combined, is disconnected. So there is no way you're going to be using that on a domestic installation, but of course it could apply to more industrial or commercial areas. The other one is the main earthing terminal in the installation is connected to an installation earth electrode by a protective conductor complying with the regulation. The resistance of the earth electrode to earth shall be such that the maximum voltage between the main earthing terminal of the installation and earth in the event of an open circuit fault in the PEN conductor does not exceed 70 volts. Now that's theoretically possible, but to ensure that it doesn't go above 70 volts, the actual impedance of this earth electrode has to be extremely low, and in reality you're not going to be just sticking in a rod in the ground and hoping. It's going to have to be a much larger installation with multiple electrodes or some kind of mesh or grid in the ground, that kind of thing. So again, that's not really going to be applicable at a domestic location because it's going to be completely impractical to install that kind of thing. So basically it comes down to the third item here, which is what you're going to be having to use. Protection against electric shock is provided by a device which disconnects the charging point from the live conductors of the supply and from protective earth in accordance with the regulation within 5 seconds in the event the voltage between the circuit protection conductor and earth exceeds 70 volts. The device shall not operate if the voltage exceeds 70 volts for less than 4 seconds. The device should provide isolation, closing or resetting manual means only, and then the bit that's been added here, it starts there, equivalent functionality could be included within the charging equipment. So essentially you need a device which detects a voltage between the actual ground itself, as in the soil or whatever outside, and the protected conductor, and then if it gets over 70 volts it disconnects. If this sounds a familiar device, then it is, because this is basically what the old earth leakage circuit breakers used to do, which were deleted in the early 1980s, though they were slightly different, but the principles are quite similar. And the important bit here is equivalent functionality could be included in the charging equipment. It's presumably the intention here that it would be included in the charging equipment, so you're going to buy the actual charging station or the point or whatever, and it would include such a device within that, so that in the event of a break in the PEN conductor, voltage goes up and then it would disconnect that, and crucially it will disconnect, as well as the line and the neutral, disconnect the circuit protection conductor as well, because as we've seen in a previous video, which I'll link in here, if the PEN conductor on a TNS supply is broken, then what you essentially get is there's no earth to the installation, and therefore all of the exposed conductive parts or the metalwork of the installation and the earth conductors will go up in voltage to something approaching the full line voltage. So in this particular instance the device would disconnect that protected conductor because it's actually disconnecting it to provide a means of safety, so then you don't have somebody standing outside on the ground holding the charge in their fingers and getting electric shock from the protective conductor. So it seems likely that presumably manufacturers are going to include this thing within the charging equipment itself, but if not, then you would have to of course install a separate device for that purpose. The next change is actually a deletion. It was 722.411.4201, and that basically referred to street electrical fixtures, just a minor note there. A new item here, which is 722.511.101. EV charging equipment shall comply with the appropriate parts of this standard, all printed in bold type for some reason. But again, that is a new item there and a standard for these things to comply with. This part here, 722.512.2, external influences. This has been expanded quite considerably, and we've now got these three individual items, so presence of water, presence of solid foreign bodies, and impact. Previously, this entire bit just required a minimum of IP44 and nothing else, so now we've got a lot more detail. So essentially it's protecting against water splashes, which is what was in there previously, the IPX4 or 44 as it was earlier. And then we've got presence of solid foreign bodies, needs to be protected against ingress of very small objects to A3, and impact, we've got a lengthy section here, up to impacts of medium severity AG2, and some options here, position or located to avoid damage by any reasonably foreseeable impact, local or general mechanical protection to be provided, and equipment to be installed that complies with a minimum degree of protection against external mechanical impact of IK7, and again in accordance with the standard here. So quite a lot of extra stuff there. Bearing in mind this stuff is going to be installed outside in terms of charging equipment. There's going to be vehicles moving close and around to it, so again, pretty sensible to have these things in there. And this here, which is the part of our RCD, is 722.531.2101. This has been expanded quite considerably, and it now actually specifies some very specific types of RCDs you can use. So except for circuits using the protective measure of electrical separation, which is uncommon, each charging point shall be protected by its own RCD of at least type A, and the rated current not exceeding 30 milliamps. And each charging point incorporating socket outlet or vehicle connector, complying with these standards here. Protective measured against DC fault current should be taken, except where provided by the EV charging equipment, and the appropriate measures are an RCD type B, an RCD type A, and appropriate equipment that provides disconnection supply in case of a DC fault current above 6 milliamps. And continuing over the page, RCDs shall comply with one of these standards here. And again, we've got a note now about the requirements for the selection and direction of RCDs in the case of supplies using DC vehicle connectors. And again, that are actually under consideration. And another item here, which is a new one, 722.533.101. Each charging point shall be supplied individually by a final circuit protected by an overcurrent protected device, complying with one of the various standards here. So no, just tapping it on some of the existing circuit, individual circuit for each one. And if you can have multiple charging points, then they all need their own individual circuit supplied by their own individual protective device. Although, as we've got a note here, the electric vehicle charging equipment may have multiple charging points, so it's not necessarily incorrect to have several of them within the same piece of machinery or equipment. But if you're going to be installing, say, 2 or 3 in one sort of local area, they all need their own individual circuit and individual overcurrent protective device. This one here, which is one of these ridiculously extended numbers with far too many parts within, 722.55.101.0.2011. And the difference here is that the first item here, number 1, or I, has been amended. So we've got, now we must include an mark EV on the rear and also on the front face as well if it says suitable for electric vehicle charging. So same items there with a socket out bit, but it needs to be marked EV on the back and also marked suitable for electric charging on the front. And the final bit here is this part in the annex, A7223, Earth Electrode Resistance. This is essentially the same. The change is here in the note. So now we've got that the above three-phase formula for RAEV is valid only where this is obviously greater than these. And previously, have a look in the other one, it was essentially the same thing rearranged so that this minus that exceeds 0. So it's essentially the same thing, it's just they've rewritten it, so rather than something minus something else is greater than 0, we've basically got that is greater than the other one, which of course in mathematical terms is exactly the same thing. Now section 730 is actually a completely new one. This didn't exist before at all, and this is for onshore units of electrical shore connections for inland navigation vessels. And this is in a similar kind of line to marinas, in that what we're covering here is the equipment that's located on the shore where you would connect to your inland navigation vessel when it was actually in there. And as I said here, the particular requirements of this section apply to onshore installations dedicated to the supply of inland navigation vessels for commercial and administrative purposes, berthing in ports and berths. And it does also refer to the marina section, which is of course 709, which we've seen before. So this part is entirely new, although a lot of it is based on what's in the marina section as well. It's now just putting it in a specific section for these types of vessels. Now section 740, which is for temporary electrical installations for amusement devices, fairgrounds, circuses and similar, there's only really two changes here. First of which is 7405511. That's the one here about luminaires. And all that's happened here, there used to be a phrase here which stated shall have a suitable IP rating. That has been deleted, and the rest of it again is pretty much the same as before, and that's what the mark there actually indicates. And the other change in this section, 7406, inspection and testing, we've now got a new part which starts here. So it's electrical installation between its origin and any electrical equipment shall be inspected. That's where it used to end. Now we've got and tested in accordance with the requirements of Part 6 after each assembly on site. So it now refers specifically to the procedures in Part 6, which are the standard inspection testing procedures, whereas previously it was just it should be inspected and tested. Now the final section which we're looking at, and the final one with any changes, is section 753. This is now called heating cables and embedded heating systems. Previously this was called floor and ceiling heating systems, so now it includes heating for walls as well. And of course the scope here has been rewritten and rearranged to include those items. So as we've got here, applies to embedded electric heating systems for surface heating, also applies to electric heating systems for de-icing, frost prevention and similar applications. Both indoor and outdoor systems are covered. So it covers all the stuff we did before, plus we've now got it covers wall heating and outdoor heating systems. Now for the section here, 753411, we've actually got a note 2 here, which was previously included, but that was actually note 1, and note 1 has been added. And we've got there, where class 2 floor or ceiling heating units complying with the requirements of these regulations are used, the metal mesh grid detailed in this regulation is not required. So that's added in, that's just moved down and it's renumbered. 753412, which is this one here, protective measure of double or reinforced insulation. This is all new, so it's been added in there. So again, it's about the items described there. And again, it goes on about the metal mesh grid as previously mentioned there. And the use of this protective measure as a sole measure is not permitted if you're going to have a wall heating system, only of course for the floors and other items. This one here, 753413, protective measure of electrical separation. Electrical separation shall not be used for wall heating systems. Previously this had a different number and it basically prohibited it for all items, so now it's only prohibited for wall heating. 753415-1, again additional protection with RCDs. This has been amended, and the difference now is that time delayed type RCDs shall not be used. Previously obviously they could be, so those are no longer permitted. This section here, 753424, protection against overheating. Although it's marked as all new, most of this has been sort of rearranged and rewritten as one of those sort of arrangement type deals. These are actually new numbers here, the 101 and the 201. But again, the content is basically what was here previously, just been changed around. Now this one, 753511. This has been expanded into 2 items, so now we've got flexible sheet heating elements shall comply with this standard. Heating cables shall comply with this. Previously it just referred to the flexible sheet heating elements and cables were not mentioned. There's a few bits that have been deleted here, which were 753512. There's actually 5121 and 5122. Those have basically been deleted, and it was about operational conditions and external influences, so those have been taken out. 753541, general, substantially the same, and there's a couple of items that have been altered. The item here, which is now cables, it previously had conductors, conductive shields and the like. There used to be a piece here about the heated area, that's been deleted. Leakage capacitance was here, and that's also been deleted. And at the bottom here we've got product information containing provisions about approved materials in contact with the heating units with necessary instructions for installation. Again, that is a new item. It's been added in. And also previously it actually referred here to a plan, and now it actually says documentation. 7535224, there was previously a section here which required that the installer shall inform other contractors. Well, that's been deleted, and we've still got the original text here as about risk of drilling and screws and so on. We're obviously providing heating-free areas for such items, so you don't have to inform other contractors any longer. And the final part here, and this is actually the final part of the entire part section here, figure 753, information for the user of the installation. This is another one you sort of printed out as printed here. There are some minor changes to the wording here. It's been printed in the book here quite a lot smaller than the previous item. Again, reasons that are unclear, and it doesn't say you have to actually print it that small. And I say some minor alterations to the actual wording contained in there. Just for reference, this is the new one we've got here, and that's what the one looked like before. So as you can see, considerably larger. Just basically reduce the size of the text. Now that's it for part 7, and 753 is actually pretty much the end of that section anyhow. So there are others in there which don't have any changes or nothing particularly significant, so obviously we didn't cover those. And that's it for this time. So until next time, thanks for watching.